The color scheme is analogous in reds and yellows, and the form is mostly round. Piping hydrangea would have added a different form and a softer texture, which would have created more contrast. The focal is the crispidia, which fits the scale well. There were no other suitable flowers available that weren't either too big, like the roses, or too soft and fragile, like the tulips. The semi-crescent on the smaller left side wasn't small enough. It should have followed the 1/3 to 2/3 proportion, but both sides ended up too similar even though the individual materials were placed symmetrically. Because of this, the shape didn't read clearly as a crescent. The mechanics were the biggest issue. The foam inside the wedding bell broke right as I was nearly finished, which left the design looking unfinished. I didn't have time to rethink the structure, and the short materials would have gone to waste if I had removed them and started again. Before the video even began, one half fell out, showing that the materials were not secure. While everything stayed in place, the bouquet was visually and actually balanced, but the structural stability wasn't reliable. If the mechanics hadn't collapsed, I wanted to move the berries further down so the color was spread out more evenly and better balanced. The handle was also supposed to have a ribbon banding, but the white satin ribbon wouldn't stay on with glue dots and fell off halfway through. This definitely needs more work to perfect the finish. The textures in the design contrasted nicely, with the softness of the crispidia against the smoother and more delicate materials. The dominance stayed clear with the crispidia acting as the focal point, but the foam and holder caused the biggest problems. The wedding bell wasn't new and already had a few holes, which most likely contributed to the foam collapsing. Using fewer materials could help reduce weight, but that then makes it difficult to hide both the foam and the plastic holder. If I remake this design, I need to think about the scale more carefully, because it ended up becoming a full crescent instead of a 2/3 to 1/3 asymmetrical crescent. The difference between the large and small sides should be obvious, but it wasn't clear in mine. The wedding bell I used was not new. Someone had already used it before me, so the foam already had holes and weak spots. This definitely contributed to it collapsing while I was still working. Having a fresh wedding bell would have helped, but none were available at the time. Finding an alternative mechanic or creating a new holder would also have been better, especially because all the materials had thin stems and I needed a lot of small pieces just to hide the mechanics. The achromatic color scheme worked nicely, but there wasn't a strong focal. Using thicker stems wasn't an option anyway, because the foam was already damaged. If I'd tried to insert anything heavier, it would have broken apart even sooner. Overall, the design wasn't a bad start, and it showed me exactly where things can be improved. I've learned that using a wedding bell with pre-existing holes is too unreliable, especially with short stems, and it's probably better to avoid them entirely unless the mechanic of the wedding bell are brand new. My banding method also needs more practice, as the ribbon fell off. The handle wasn't wet because I dried it first, so the issue was likely the glue dots not being strong enough to hold the satin ribbon while I moved the bell around to cover all sides evenly. More contrast in texture and form is needed. In most of my designs I seem to default to fluffy texture and round forms, which would be good if a spiky texture and a star-shaped form such as a small orchid.